it's very difficult to control female antisocial behavior, often of the type that's been pilloried as hysterical. And I think that there is no shortage of clinical evidence to support precisely that claim. It's very difficult for women to control female antisocial behavior, and females who are antisocial, that feminine pattern is reputation savaging under the guise of compassionate care.
Piers Morgan and Jordan Peterson didn't just mention Meghan Markle, they lit her image on fire. Live, unscripted, and unapologetic, they tore into the Duchess with words so sharp they cut through years of polished PR. Peterson, known for never backing down from controversy, didn't hesitate. He claimed Meghan's voice drips with falsehood, comparing her tone to a sanctimonious performance meant to pull her audience in with sugar while slipping poison underneath. And Piers? He grinned, because this was the kind of roast he'd been waiting to air for years. But here's the thing, this wasn't just a casual comment. It was another chapter in Meghan's ongoing role as one of the most criticized women alive. From TV anchors to psychologists, from tabloids to podcasts, her name keeps getting dragged into the firestorm. Why do powerful men, time after time, keep calling her out? Why can't they leave her alone? Or the darker question, why can't Meghan stop giving them reasons? The official story says Meghan is the misunderstood victim, a woman silenced by the press and hounded by unfair critics.
Ever been called crazy or hysterical? Or what about nuts, insane, out of your mind, completely irrational?
I don't think that men can control crazy women.
The use of these labels has been
But if you believe that, you probably also believe fairy tales. Because when you line up the receipts, Meghan's narrative looks less like a story of survival and more like a carefully staged play. Every act is written to make her the heroine and everyone else the villain. That's not coincidence, that's branding. And that's the brutal twist. This roast wasn't new. It was predictable. Peterson, Piers, Clarkson, and countless others don't just stumble onto Meghan's name. They know her story guarantees attention, clicks, and outrage. It's a cycle she claims to hate, but somehow she never escapes. There's so much to unpack here, and we need to get to it right now. Because once you dig into what Peterson actually said, why Piers keeps bringing her up, and why Meghan has become the lightning rod of an entire generation, the picture gets uglier than anyone wants to admit.
Drilled into us from movies and TV, from friends and family, and even from random strangers. And the fact is, no one wants this label.
It all starts with one clip. Meghan Markle on her Archetypes podcast asking her audience if they'd ever been called crazy or hysterical. She framed it as a cultural wound, a sexist insult that women have carried for generations. But then came the twist. Jordan Peterson's name got dragged into it. Suddenly, the world's most controversial psychologist was painted as the villain in Meghan's story.
What did you make of that, Jordan, to be suddenly appearing on Meghan Markle's podcast as a villain?
The first
who was
thing I make
calling
of
women crazy
is that the first thing I make of it is that her voice drips with the same falsehood that the voice of Kamala Harris drips with.
And that's when Peterson fired back. Live with Piers Morgan, he didn't hold back. He said Meghan's voice drips with falsehood, describing her style as sanctimonious, fake compassion wrapped in performance. He accused her of weaponizing victimhood, of hiding manipulative behavior under the mask of caring. His words weren't just criticism, they were a character assassination delivered in plain daylight.
It's this sanctimonious, faux compassionate, talking down to her audience and trying to be sure that we're all really on the same compassionate page here, and we're all being victimized by terrible forces that are arrayed against us, and none of that's really fair.
Think about it. Peterson could have brushed it off, ignored her mention, or laughed it away. Instead, he doubled down, saying her approach was extraordinarily destructive. He even went further, claiming Meghan represents a broader kind of female antisocial behavior, reputation savaging disguised as compassion. In other words, she doesn't just play the victim, she flips the narrative to make others the villain while walking away untouchable. And here's the kicker, this wasn't an isolated swipe. Peterson's roast echoed what Piers Morgan himself has been saying for years, that Meghan's entire public persona is built on carefully curated outrage. Peterson put the intellectual spin on it, but the message was the same.
Extraordinarily destructive. And so I stand by my words.
Absolutely.
And I do think it scales online. because you can use an anonymous reputation savaging to unbelievably great effect online with absolutely no punishment for your sins.
Meghan isn't misunderstood. She's calculating. It doesn't look like coincidence, it looks like strategy. And when two men from very different worlds, a TV firebrand and an academic heavyweight, land on the same conclusion, you have to wonder, is Meghan's entire brand built on the performance of pain? And here's where it gets worse, because Piers Morgan's feud with Meghan isn't just old news. It's the backbone of her entire media war, and his receipts go back years. If Peterson lit the match, Piers Morgan has been fanning the flames for years. Long before Meghan mentioned Peterson on her podcast, she and Piers were already locked in one of the messiest feuds in modern celebrity history. It all starts with the night Meghan and Piers first met. By his own account, they shared drinks, exchanged stories, and he thought they were on the cusp of friendship. But then, silence. Meghan never called him back, never messaged, never reappeared. Instead, within 24 hours, she was seen walking into Prince Harry's life. To Piers, it wasn't just rejection, it was betrayal, and he's never forgiven her. From that moment, Piers has turned Meghan into his favorite target. On Good Morning Britain, he accused her of being manipulative, calculating, and obsessed with playing the victim. When Meghan and Harry's Oprah interview aired, Piers stormed off set after refusing to believe a word she said. That moment didn't just go viral, it cemented him as Meghan's most relentless critic. And here's the brutal truth. Peterson and Piers don't know each other personally, but their language about Meghan overlaps almost perfectly. Both describe her as fake. Both say she thrives on victimhood. Both accuse her of turning compassion into a weapon. That's not just random opinion. That's a pattern. And the whispers get louder. Meghan doesn't just fall out with people, she leaves behind scorched earth. Whether it's a TV anchor like Piers, or an intellectual like Peterson, or even her own in-laws, the accusations sound eerily similar. And that's the kicker. When the criticism starts to look like a broken record, maybe it isn't coincidence. Maybe it's a cycle. And Piers Morgan has made it his mission to keep reminding the world that Meghan Markle isn't the saint she claims to be. But the more Meghan pushes back, the more her critics claim she proves them right. And that takes us straight into the next layer, the victim narrative that Meghan has carefully built, and why Peterson says it's her most destructive weapon. The official story says Meghan Markle is the victim, silenced by the palace, crushed by the press, and misunderstood by the public. She repeats this theme in interviews, in documentaries, and most clearly in her Archetypes podcast, where she framed words like crazy and hysterical as weapons society has used against women for generations. But here's where the cracks show. Peterson didn't just dismiss her framing, he called it out as manipulative. To him, Meghan wasn't healing wounds, she was creating them. He described her tone as sanctimonious and dripping with falsehood, accusing her of turning compassion into a cover for reputation attacks. In his words, this wasn't empowerment, it was a performance. And here's where it gets worse. Every time Meghan leans into the victim narrative, her critics say she proves their point. When she opens up about her mental health struggles, skeptics call it strategic vulnerability. When she speaks about racism in the royal family, detractors say she weaponizes accusations to silence opposition. It's a cycle that feeds itself. The more she claims oppression, the more people accuse her of playing the victim card. Think about it. How many public figures can fall back on the same narrative again and again? Normal people don't have that shield. Meghan does. And according to her critics, that's not coincidence. That's strategy. And yet, the story doesn't stop with Peterson or Piers. Meghan's critics come from every corner. TV hosts, journalists, and even fellow celebrities. Which raises the question, why do so many voices from such different places sound the same when they talk about Meghan Markle? And that takes us directly to the next bombshell, the other celebrities who couldn't resist taking their own shots at Meghan, and why their words only make the conspiracy look darker. If you think it's just Peterson and Piers, think again. Meghan Markle has a long list of critics, and they're not quiet about it. Every few months, another public figure takes their swing, and the language starts to sound like a chorus. Jeremy Clarkson, one of the loudest voices in British media, unleashed a column so vicious it nearly broke the internet. He admitted he hated Meghan on a cellular level and spun a grotesque fantasy about public humiliation. The backlash was immediate, but the damage was done. Meghan's name was once again pinned to headlines soaked in outrage. Clarkson later apologized, but the words stuck, feeding the narrative that Meghan provokes a rage far beyond ordinary celebrity criticism. And it doesn't end there. Royal insiders, from palace staffers to former aides, have whispered about Meghan's alleged bullying during her time at Kensington Palace. They claim she left behind a trail of broken employees, people who felt used, discarded, or silenced. The palace even launched an internal investigation, and though the official findings were buried, the whispers never stopped. Even Hollywood has weighed in. Comedians have mocked her princess victim act on stage. Late-night hosts casually roast her Netflix deals. Meghan's supposed to be a Hollywood insider, yet somehow she's become an outsider there too. And here's the sinister part. These voices don't sound coordinated, but they rhyme. Piers says Meghan plays the victim. Peterson says her voice drips with falsehood. Clarkson says he despises her. Palace aides say she's a bully. That's not just random, that's a pattern. The deeper you dig, the clearer it looks. Meghan isn't just criticized for what she does, she's accused of being built on performance, of staging compassion while quietly waging war behind the scenes. And here's the brutal twist. If Peterson's right, this isn't just Meghan surviving in cancel culture, this is Meghan using cancel culture as her personal weapon, and that's where the nightmare scenario begins. Let's strip away the speculation and face the nightmare head-on. Meghan Markle isn't just a victim of cancel culture, she might be one of its most effective architects. Jordan Peterson drew the line clearly. He argued that Meghan represents a destructive kind of behavior, reputation savaging under the guise of compassion. In his view, her brand of activism isn't just about empowerment, it's about using carefully chosen words to frame others as villains while she stands tall as the wounded heroine. That's not survival, that's strategy. And here's where it gets darker. Every time Meghan speaks out, someone else is left branded, humiliated, or canceled. When she accused the royal family of racism in that infamous Oprah interview, the palace scrambled. The headlines didn't just question the monarchy, they scorched it. Insiders whispered that her words permanently fractured trust inside the institution. Think about it. Most celebrities avoid cancel culture like a plague. But Meghan, she leans into it, turning it into ammunition. She highlights the words used against her, crazy, hysterical, diva, and flips them into proof of systemic abuse. Critics argue that it's not about fixing the problem, it's about fueling the narrative. Because here's the thing, normal people don't have the power to redefine an insult as a global conversation. Meghan does. And once you see it, it doesn't feel like coincidence. It feels like a blueprint. And that's the brutal twist. If Peterson's theory is right, Meghan isn't the hunted in cancel culture, she's the hunter. She isn't dodging arrows, she's firing them. And if that's the case, then the bigger question becomes chilling. How long can she keep the illusion intact before it all unravels? Here's the cycle. Meghan Markle steps into the spotlight. Critics take their aim, and instead of fading, the fire only grows. It's almost as if Meghan has become the gravitational center of every cultural argument. Victimhood, cancel culture, feminism, race, power, whatever the issue, somehow her name gets dragged back into it. And this is why Piers Morgan and Jordan Peterson can't resist her. Peterson framed her voice as falsehood. Piers branded her manipulative. Clarkson went nuclear. Even palace insiders whispered about her behind the scenes. These people come from completely different worlds: politics, media, academia, even comedy. But when Meghan's name comes up, the script sounds eerily familiar. Why? Because Meghan represents something bigger than herself. She's not just a duchess. She's a symbol of celebrity rebellion, of royal betrayal, of Hollywood's obsession with image-making. For her fans, she's the brave outsider. For her critics, she's the master manipulator. Either way, she guarantees attention, and attention is the real currency in today's world. But here's where it unravels. Meghan insists she wants privacy, yet she signs multi-million-dollar Netflix deals. She claims to hate the media, yet she launches podcasts and documentaries. She says she doesn't care about critics, yet her voice cracks when she responds. That contradiction is the gasoline that keeps critics like Piers and Peterson coming back, because the more she says she's done with the spotlight, the more she proves she isn't. And that's the kicker. Meghan doesn't need to chase drama. Drama finds her, and whether she admits it or not, that's why the criticism never stops. As long as she keeps walking this tightrope, half victim, half mogul, men like Peterson and Morgan will always have fresh ammunition. And if this roast looks brutal, just wait. Because the chorus of voices calling her out isn't shrinking, it's multiplying. And Meghan's story, it's only getting darker. So there it is, Meghan Markle roasted live, caught in the crossfire of Piers Morgan's grudge and Jordan Peterson's intellectual sledgehammer. One calls her manipulative, the other says her very voice drips with falsehood. And when you line up all the other critics, Clarkson, Palisades, comedians, media insiders, the picture that emerges isn't flattering, it's brutal. But here's the thing, this cycle isn't slowing down. Meghan keeps presenting herself as the misunderstood heroine, and her critics keep tearing that image apart. And every time it happens, the story grows bigger, the spotlight burns hotter, and the cracks in the narrative widen. Because the whispers won't die. Is Meghan truly the victim she claims to be? Or is she the strategist her critics describe, carefully crafting a persona that thrives on outrage and sympathy in equal measure? And that's the brutal twist. If this roast looks bad, wait until you see what's next. Rumors are already swirling about Meghan's next Hollywood moves, more projects with Prince Harry, and the lingering tension with the royal family that refuses to fade. Every new step is another opportunity for the critics to pounce, and for Meghan to either prove them wrong or hand them more ammunition. This is Hollywood Daily Reports. Subscribe, stay tuned, and buckle up because we've got more from where this came from.